Tonight on the 4:30 News, a Laurel natural gas plant faces more challengers.
I'm very excited that they filed. It just was a great encouragement.
We'll tell you why a group of youth activists have thrown their hat in the ring against Northwestern Energy. Plus, more on a recent study that says 6 Montana glaciers have now all but disappeared due to climate change. And
I'm Jolie Sully here in Bozeman, where just last week, campers were lined up down the block here off Hemlock Street, bumper to bumper. But today, they're nowhere to be found. I'll tell you how our urban campers are adjusting to a new set of rules, just days after the ordinance went into effect.
the MTN News starts right now. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Casey Conlon. A now famous group of youth climate activists have joined the fight against a natural gas plant on the banks of the Yellowstone River in Laurel. The group of 16 made headlines in August by winning a lawsuit that said the state of Montana was failing to protect them from the dangers of climate change. This week, they filed a brief to the state Supreme Court saying the air quality permit granted to Northwestern Energy to build the Laurel plant should be invalidated based on the August ruling. The brief supports a lawsuit filed by 2 environmental groups against Northwestern, a fight that's been going on since late 2021. A ruling by Yellowstone District Court Judge Michael Moses halted construction on the plant earlier this year, but it resumed when the state legislature passed a law saying agencies couldn't consider greenhouse gas emissions in permit decisions. The youth activist group believes their ruling should supersede that.
Young people are concerned and old people have gone to sleep. I think that's a kind of a wake-up call. These kids are really putting it on the line, and they're not stopping. They didn't say, oh, we won, let's go on, I'm going to college or whatever. Oh no, they're still in the battle, and to me, that's very encouraging.
Northwestern released a statement saying they do not agree with the youth activists' position, but they didn't oppose the brief. At this point, they expect the plant to start operating next summer. Montana's glaciers have been around for ages, literally. Some are estimated to be at least 7,000 years old, but they're melting. A recent study says the state has officially lost 6 of them, including 2 right here in our backyard. MTN's Geneva Zoltek takes a deeper look.
52 named glaciers and even more without formal names have disappeared in the western U.S. That's according to new research coming out of Portland State University. So why are these ancient giants disappearing? Well, it really comes down to warming temperatures.
Overall, the trend is not changing precipitation as much as it is changing air temperatures, warming air temperatures. And that's what we're seeing reflected in the glacier shrinkage. And they're the tangible evidence of this climate change.
Fountain's been researching glaciers since 1980. His recent work refreshes an outdated inventory.
And the reason why we did the project was that the glacier maps really haven't been updated since mid-century. Mid-20th century. And for Montana, what that means is the 1960s.
That research revealed 6 named glaciers have been lost in Montana. The Boulder Glacier, Blackwell, Fisher, and Gray Wolf glaciers in the Missions, one called Grasshopper in the Crazies, and another Grasshopper in the Beartooths near Yellowstone. And dozens more without names have been lost, according to Fountain.
Overall, 75 glaciers in Montana have gone. And what I mean by disappeared is either they've entirely vanished, or they've turned into a snow patch, or else it dropped below our area threshold. Our minimum area for identifying glaciers is 1 football field next to 1 football field.
Glaciers change shape year to year, but with warming trends, they are melting faster than they're being replenished by annual snowfall.
As winter temperatures warm, even though we might have the same amount of precipitation, more of it falls as rain than snow than it did, 40 years ago. So the glaciers get less replenished in the winter, and then they get melted more in the summer, and it's kind of a double whammy.
Glaciers are imperative for high alpine ecosystems. So what are the consequences if they melt?
They're not there to do that anymore. So those alpine regions are increasingly susceptible to drought.
Temperatures are anticipated to continue warming in the decades to come, putting even more pressure on Montana's remaining glaciers. In Helena, Geneva Zoltek, MTN News.
Well, we had a mixture of high clouds and sunshine around central and eastern Montana this afternoon, but we have other changes, and some of them are going to be quite unsettled changes going forward. Increasing clouds this evening for a large part of Montana. Also have my eyes on a warming trend going forward. However, not the most comfortable warming trend considering it'll be December, because it's going to be accompanied by a lot of strong gusty wind, even some chances for some rain and snow showers. Our 7-day forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Residents are 1 week into Bozeman's new urban camping ordinance to mixed results. Some streets are completely clear to residents' delight, but other areas are facing new struggles, especially for campers. MTN's Jolie Sally spoke with an urban camper who tells us how folks are adjusting.
Urban campers in Bozeman are plotting their next move, literally. A new ordinance has gone into effect that has them adjusting to a new set of rules.
I've been living here in Montana 45 years, and I've never had it like this.
Timothy Bump lives in this camper off Kimberwick.
All I have is my camper.
And he's lived in it for 4 years.
And this is not easy living like this.
He says it's tough trying to survive in Bozeman, but the enforcement of the ordinance requiring folks living like Bump to move their campers every 30 days just makes his situation harder.
I don't have anybody to pull this thing anywhere.
Over on West Hemlock Street, campers used to be lined up bumper to bumper down the block, but now it's just these little orange signs, a warning to urban campers that the area was to be vacated, effective on November 24th. The ordinance prohibits people from sleeping in trailers or RVs near homes, parks, schools, daycares, or within 100 feet of the entrance to a business. And although businesses on Hemlock may be happy to see their streets cleaned up,
No, we're just being pushed further and further away. I don't have any way of paying for the fine that we would get.
the rules of the ordinance also require that people keep all of their belongings inside their camper when not actively using them, and allows city officials to issue fines up to $25 after 3 warnings.
We have not issued any citations yet.
Assistant City Manager Chuck Wynn says they want to keep it that way. In the last 3 days, city employees have been out in the urban encampments educating folks on the new rules. But
there are some people that just aren't interested in following any rules, and we have to work with those folks in a different way.
The city is keeping track of urban campers or vehicles that have been in one place too long.
We're starting a records management system that has the trailer, the location, the contact information.
They're also placing yellow stickers on abandoned vehicles.
We are making a difference in this community. And if you talk to 100 people out in the street, you'll get 100 different stories about why they're there. And some of them are very compelling and heartfelt reasons, and we're trying to be compassionate with those folks, for sure.
But Bump says the entire situation just makes him feel helpless.
There's no light at the end of our tunnel. It's just really sad.
In Bozeman, Jolie Salee, MTN News.
Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman on the U.S. Supreme Court, died Friday at age 93. The retired justice died in Phoenix from complications related to dementia and a respiratory illness. In a statement, Chief Justice John Roberts called O'Connor, quote, a daughter of the American Southwest, adding that she, quote, blazed an historic trail as our nation's first female justice.
December is here, and for the first time in years, Congress is not facing the threat of a government shutdown around the holidays. But there is still a lot on the congressional to-do list before the end of the year, impacting everything from wars abroad to airports nationwide. With just 2 weeks of work scheduled for the House and the Senate in December, congressional leaders have laid out an aggressive list of goals. Top on the list, President Biden's supplemental funding request for Israel, Ukraine, the Indo-Pacific, and the southern border. Some lawmakers want to deal with those issues separately, and some House Republicans are trying to add partisan border priorities into the package.
The solution for passing the supplemental is bipartisan compromise, and we have shown that we are willing to do it. The wrong answer is to let Ukraine aid, let Israel aid, let aid to civilians in Gaza all get bungled because the hard right wanted H.R. 2 or something close to it.
Congress also needs to deal with the FAA reauthorization, which is set to expire at the end of the year. The debate over pilot training and retirement requirements has slowed down talks. The bill is also expected to help increase the number of air traffic controllers.
An awful lot of the reason for delay, as people are experiencing delay in air travel, is because of shortage of air traffic controllers. And the FAA reauthorization bill would really help us get at that problem.
Other issues facing an end-of-year deadline include the National Defense Authorization Act and reauthorization of Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Another item on the agenda is simply making progress on the federal budget. But Republicans and Democrats haven't even settled on top-line spending amounts.
And so part of the negotiations on the supplemental, part of the negotiations on the remaining appropriations bills, and everything that's on our plate is viewed by us through that lens, that we have to restore this idea of fiscal sanity.
The House and Senate are expected to pass differing versions of the 12 regular appropriations bills, so the two chambers will need to meet to reconcile those differences, and that takes time. The first budget deadline comes January 19th, 2024. Stephanie Liebergen, Scripps News, Washington.
Stay with us. Jason is back after the break with a look at our weekend forecast and a warm-up coming our way. Plus, Spotify's year-ending Wraps are dominating social media this week. We'll show you how Magic City listeners spent their 2023.